The New Orleans Saints keep on adding Gruden grinders.
Hey, Nate, you gotta hurry up, man. It takes forever. Start the motion, get it going.
This Nate Peterman is growing on me.
What does this mean for Derek Carr and the quarterback room? And Jon Gruden is returning to football in a new role, but it's not exactly what you think. The New Orleans Saints made a massive signing for a pass rusher. How did their free agency match up to the rest of the NFC South? Subscribe to me, Wi-Fi Willie, for more NFL content. Some New Orleans Saints fans love quarterback Jamus Winston, not necessarily because of what he does on the football field, but because of the type of character he is off the field. He's a funny guy, seems like he really loves the city of New Orleans, but after all the injuries and after all the contracts, the Saints have decided to move on, and now Jamus Winston has a new opportunity with the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson of the Browns dealt with tons of injuries last year, and there have been reports as of February 2024 saying that Watson could still be disciplined if more evidence is released from the cases that are currently against him. So this is a big opportunity for Jamus Winston. He has a $2 million signing bonus plus $4 million guaranteed. Winston is going to have to battle it out for the number 2 QB job with Tyler Huntley, the former Baltimore Ravens quarterback. And he'll also be up against Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the quarterback from UCLA that started quite a few games for Cleveland last year. And I really feel like this is Jamus Winston's last stop. The injuries have been excuses over the past few years. Then it seemed like he sort of started blaming Dennis Allen because they went with Andy Dalton above him and then Derek Carr above him. And I think at this point, if he can't fill in and be the number 2 quarterback for the Browns, then I think there's no excuses for this guy anymore at this point. I personally do not think Jamus Winston is a good quarterback, and I also don't really find him that funny, and I do think he is sort of a head case for a head coach. Last season, he defied Dennis Allen's orders, did not kneel to football against the Atlanta Falcons, causing a dispute between Arthur Smith and Dennis Allen.
He is hot. He said, "What are you doing?" And he's going at Dennis Allen.
I understand that.
Why don't you feel good about it?
Because you got to play these guys twice a year.
But what about it makes you not feel good about it?
The head coach tells you to kneel it out. You're asking my opinion?
Yes.
I think you should have kneeled it out.
Okay.
I would cut Jamus Winston today. I would not want him on my team. That's loser's mentality.
Just made you think to yourself, like, maybe that's why this guy's a f***ing loser. Maybe that's why this guy flamed out in Tampa.
He has showed lack of professionalism, and his play does not excuse the fact that he's a lack of a professional, similar to Michael Thomas, who was recently released by the New Orleans Saints. This guy is now going off, still on Twitter after being released, saying that the reason why he's on the outs with the organization is because he's not a yes man, so that makes him a cancer. But under a winning coach like Sean Payton, he was looked at differently, and it's a mentality that makes losers uncomfortable because they're used to losing all their career. So he is basically calling Dennis Allen a loser, and despite the fact that Michael Thomas is currently a free agent with absolutely nobody pursuing him right now, it is apparently all Dennis Allen's fault, all the general manager Mickey Loomis's fault for why Michael Thomas isn't doing well in his career. And look, you can act like this in the NFL. You can have an attitude like this in the NFL, but you have to ball out on the football field. Unfortunately, Winston and Michael Thomas no longer can do that, and that is why the saltiness is getting old. One man who's not getting old is the new pass rusher for the New Orleans Saints, and that is none other than Chase Young, the former first-round pick for the Washington Commanders, who was traded last season to the San Francisco 49ers. The Commanders were obviously rebuilding, and the Niners needed somebody to fill that pass rushing role. He was not used that much in the running game, which makes him a perfect fit for the Saints because this is exactly what they need. They already have edge defenders who could handle the run game, but they need a solid pass rusher, and after being quiet in free agency for so long, they made this splash move, and it is a fat contract. NFL insider Jordan Schultz said part of the recruiting process was at dinner with the safety Tyrann Mathieu, head coach Dennis Allen, D coordinator Joe Woods, and D-line coach Todd Gratham. So it looks like the dinner convinced the guy. Maybe it was the beignets that won him over. Chase Young did have a few places that were willing to pay him. One was the Carolina Panthers, the NFC South division rival, who recently lost their edge rusher Brian Burns, and also the Tennessee Titans. So he looked at those two organizations, decided to go with the New Orleans Saints instead. Niners fans criticized Chase Young, saying that he did not have great effort after he was traded from the Commanders to the Niners. But honestly, it seems like the dude knew they weren't going to re-sign him, and it wasn't his choice to go to the Niners. The Commanders just shipped him there. So I can understand why he would want to keep his body healthy towards the end of last year, especially if he knew he was going to test free agency. After the Chase Young signing was announced, suddenly, out of nowhere, things changed where Chase Young is set to undergo neck surgery. If all goes well, he's expected to be back by the start of the season. So the new pass rusher might not even be available during training camp. It turns out the $13 million guaranteed is kind of BS, because now that the contract is fully released, Chase Young has nearly $8 million in per game roster bonuses. Basically, the Saints are only paying the guy about $4 million. It could be $8 million more if he plays games. Chase Young will make roughly $500,000 per game. According to Sports Illustrated, Albert Breer, no other team would clear Chase Young from his physical. It does seem like the Saints were one of the few teams to take a chance on the guy. Fortunately for them, they are protected in case he doesn't play. One Gruden grinder was re-signed to the New Orleans Saints, and that is none other than the safety Jonathan Abram. Abram was a former first-round pick for the Oakland Raiders in 2019. He dealt with injuries throughout his career and was great as a safety in the box, but would struggle in coverage with the Raiders at times. He was eventually released by Josh McDaniels and then made his way over to the Saints in the 2023 season. Abram started to emerge for the Saints at the end of the season. He appeared in 9 games for New Orleans and had 3 starts overall for the Saints, 2 of the 3 starts coming in the last 2 games of the regular season when he was the player of the game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And now that the Saints have released Marcus May, Abram has a serious shot to start for New Orleans this year at strong safety.
I was so happy. We obviously were together, with the Raiders, and I've seen his development, I've seen his growth, and I'm more proud of who he's become off the field and the type of man he's become, the type of father he wants to be.
The Saints had 3 wide receivers on the roster, and I really want them to sign Hunter Renfrow, who is currently available right now. They have since signed Cedric Wilson, the former Miami Dolphins wide receiver, to a 2-year contract. That is not good for me since I want them to grab Hunter Renfrow, but we don't know the exact deal of this contract, how much money is guaranteed, and as long as Hunter Renfrow is out there as a free agent, I still believe it's possible for the Saints to grab the guy. The Saints found another steal in free agency, and that is the former Super Bowl champion linebacker, Willie Gay. A lot of Chiefs fans were upset that they let this guy go, and the Saints got him at an absolute steal, a $3 million contract that could turn into $5 million based on incentives. So now they have a completely dominant linebacker core led by Demario Davis with Pete Werner and now Willie Gay. And no haters, no, I am not gonna buy a Saints Willie Gay jersey. But the big signing for me was the quarterback position, where the New Orleans Saints grabbed another Gruden grinder, quarterback Nathan Peterman.
Seconds, Nate. Hurry up, Nate. 16. Nate, get the fuck on, Nate. Let's go.
Jon Gruden famously gave Nathan Peterman a hard time while he was on Hard Knocks in 2019.
Hey, you gotta hurry up, man. It takes forever. Start the motion, get it going. We're running out of time. My life is running out of lifespan.
But it really was because Gruden believed in the guy. And after having that disastrous moment with the Buffalo Bills when he threw a huge record number of interceptions, Gruden knew that you had to build Peterman's confidence back, and I felt like he did while he was with the Raiders.
This Nate Peterman is growing on me. He's athletic. I know he's had some nightmare performances in the NFL, but when you watch the film, you can see why. It's not all his fault.
It's just too nice. It's just too, dice left, right. No, I mean, come on, be a little bit more like me. Be a little bit of a jerk.
And you saw Nathan Peterman be a solid backup QB, especially in preseason, for the Raiders for a couple of years. Peterman spoke about the fact that Derek Carr was a key reason why he joined the Saints.
He was one of the first calls I made, kind of deciding on everything. And Derek's a great competitor. And so always trying to push each other, whatever it is in practice.
I believe Nathan Peterman is going to be an upgrade over Jamus Winston as a backup quarterback. Not only just as a football player, but also in the film room. There were tons of reports while he was with the Raiders that the guy was really helpful in the QB room in terms of film study. So that does complete the Saints quarterback room. You got Derek Carr as your starter, Nathan Peterman battling it out with another freshman Fresno State quarterback Jake Haener, who was famous for his little photo shoots last year. Haener was suspended most of last season. Let's see how he does this year. Jon Gruden is a big fan of Nathan Peterman and also football all around. He is returning to football, but not the NFL because he has his current lawsuit against the NFL and Roger Goodell. Gruden will be on a Euro trip helping out the European Football League. Jon Gruden is working with the Italians here, hired as an advisor for the Milano Seamen. And no, that's not what he called Roger Goodell in the emails, it's the name of his new team. He will be an advisor helping out their coaching staff. It's not a real official coaching role. But it just shows how hungry Jon Gruden is to get back into coaching football. A lot of people thought the Saints were going to hire him as the offensive coordinator, but his lawsuit against the NFL and Roger Goodell, which seems to be pushed back all the way till July, the Nevada Supreme Court is still discussing whether or not Jon Gruden's lawsuit will even go to an official court hearing. But all that makes it so difficult for him to go back in the NFL, and that is likely why he is not the New Orleans Saints offensive coordinator today. It really was a real possibility. Gruden was meeting with the GM of the Saints and some of their coaching staff in Tampa Bay in week 17 just last season. So it is a shame this BS is happening to him, but hopefully this lawsuit will be put behind him one day and he will be able to return back in the National Football League again. The Atlanta Falcons are trying to compete in the NFC South as they have signed Kirk Cousins to the quarterback position and also made a big splash signing grabbing Darnell Mooney, the former Bears wide receiver, to a 3-year contract, almost $40 million. It should be interesting to see how this works out. They added some speed at the wide receiver position. They have Drake London still, but they don't have a wide receiver like Justin Jefferson, and Kirk Cousins is still dealing with that Achilles injury. I don't believe the dude is going to be 100% going into training camp at all. You also have the Buccaneers, who resigned Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans. They really didn't make any big splash outside spending moves. They pretty much kept their exact same team as last year. And I like Baker Mayfield, but I think his season last year was incredibly overrated. The Saints had way more drama with people like Michael Thomas in the locker room. Derek Carr had his injuries. The offensive line really struggled to block. And the Buccaneers, I felt like, had a better roster most of the season, but still ended up with the same record as the Saints. Baker Mayfield wasn't getting knocked out of games like Derek Carr. And really, the Buccaneers luckily won the division against the Saints. The Carolina Panthers mainly beefed up their O-line and also traded for Steelers wide receiver Deontay Johnson. The Panthers seem like they're still rebuilding with their new head coach, David Canales. David Canales, who famously co-wrote a book with his wife about his corn addiction and binge drinking. The book details how him and his wife overcame their problems, which is great. I just don't understand why they had to write a book about it and let the whole public know. But this is apparently what is going on with the Carolina Panthers. Do you think the Saints still have a shot to win the NFC South, or will the Falcons emerge? Could the Buccaneers hang on to the division again? Like this video if you have not yet. Subscribe to this channel for more NFL content from me, Wi-Fi Willie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.